Namaste, Sanbonani, Nonke Makaya. I hope everyone is well on this wonderful day. It is the Independence Day of India, and we are celebrating a very unique experience in South Africa. We have with us a panel of guests that have joined together in celebration of the theme, Unity and Development. And it is such an honor for me to be part and parcel of the panel today to share this extraordinary experience between the two countries. Many of us have very different views, and we'd like to share this positive space of unity and development between the two democracies in the world. In fact, India is regarded as the largest democracy, and South Africa perhaps the newest. And their history is long, and their history is united by so many common threads. So today I open it out to everyone in the panel to share their wonderful views, and hand over to Mayur and Brandon to take us through the session.
In that
yes,
case?
You can edit.
Yes. Okay.
Let's continue. No problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Yashika ji, for initiating the call. This walk the talk is, as we mentioned, this is going to be a series of talks. Gorita will explain it in more detail. This initiative is basically coming from India Club, as well as in association with the High Commission and Consulate General of India. This is going to be a series of talk shows, which we will try and cover all the facts about India and how India is contributing to world peace as well as development. Okay, so thank you very much once again. I welcome all the panelists in this show, and we would like to initiate the discussion again as Yashika ji has given quite a good brief on this, and I open the floor for the discussion.
Thank you very much. I'd like to hand to Brandon, who's going to actually manage the chairing of the session today. So there's quite a few of us from the media. There's also Lokanath ji, who's an entrepreneur, and in the medical fraternity. So he's going to share a lot about the relationship between India and South Africa on that front. And of course, Fakir Hassen, well-known journalist in South Africa, a writer, an author, a person who's been in broadcasting, and his accolades, go a long way. In fact, we can have lots more dialogue with him. And it's just, this day is actually to start a series of discussions between the two countries. I think both countries have significant amounts to contribute to in terms of learning and sharing. And more importantly, we see Africa as a very pivotal part in the development of the world economy, in the development of world education and health. And this has been a pioneering spirit of the Prime Minister of India in a new India. So I'd like to hand over to Brandon to maybe take us through, some of the questions that he would like to share with us, so that each of the panel members would be able to respond.
Thank you, Yashika ji. As stated earlier on, my name is Brandon Majozi. On this very auspicious day of the Independence Day of the Republic of India, I'd like to also extend my best wishes to India, which I also consider a home to me. She's been a home to me. I was so fortunate to be locked down there when the coronavirus breakout started. So I was there for about just over 6 months. So it really felt like home. Maybe that will be a very good starting point to one of my questions, that, India has gone just beyond the limitations of race, color, religion. It has become the center of the spiritual world, so to say. Everybody is attracted to the Indian culture, the Indian spiritual factors, the health offering that India has to give to various people all over the world. So my first question, I'd like to perhaps direct it to Mr. Lokanath. In your visit to India, what attracted you to just maybe going again as a non-Indian person, so to say, as the world would consider you? Am I audible?
Brandon, I didn't quite get the question. You started breaking up there. Could you please repeat it?
Yes, my question was, as we all know India to be the center of the world, as stated earlier on, and visibly by people like yourself and myself, now consider India as one of their homes, the spiritual homes. What do you find so attractive for you to continuously be attracted and keep going to India?
Thank you. That's a very nice question. I've been to India 4 times on pilgrimage, visiting places in near Mathura and Vrindavan. I've visited in Bengal, Navadvip, Nepal. And what struck me going to India is that there's a very different energy there, very unique. As we understand, there are 3 modes of nature: the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. And I found India to be very much in the mode of goodness. So this is wonderful to see, and wonderful to experience, very unique. And as the great spiritual teachers have said, the uniqueness of India is that even though there are elements of being technologically and sort of materially not that advanced, at least perhaps some time ago when the statement was made. And but India has the vision. So if we think about it as a lame man and a blind man, India might be in certain respects materially lame, but India it's got the vision. So the blind man is carried by the lame man. The blind man carries the lame man. And so the West, with all its technological advancement, material advancements, and economical advancements, is the blind man. And India is the lame man, but it has the vision. So the blind man is carrying the lame man. And in this way, we actually see that India can give immense guidance and immense spiritual direction to the whole world. And India is, and always has been, a place where people go to seek spiritual guidance, and remain so. And if we can take advantage of what India has to offer in the spiritual realm, then we can go, the whole world can go very far, and the whole world can actually get uplifted immensely. Yeah. So this is very attractive. This is a very attractive part of India. Another amazing thing actually is that in India there are many holy places that are being maintained. And so we can go there on pilgrimage and take the association of these wonderfully spiritually so charged places.
Yeah, thank you, Lokanath, for such a good answer and so informative. I mean, you know, with the whole new breakout of COVID-19, one of the most amazing things about our new norm and our new normality is, you know, one has such a privilege like I have now of just having a dialogue with, you know, one of the people you look up to, like Fakir Bhai. You know, I follow you on social media, and I have such a keen interest on your writings and what your opinion pieces as well. And it's such an honor to have you here, sir. So as a very expressive person, and also a veteran journalist, and, you know, a freedom fighter, so many labels to yourself, what has been the most interesting similarities that one can draw in terms of our social standing and social, you know, diversity, or whatever the case might be between India and South Africa, that in your experience between the travels or the writes or the write-ups and the state visits that you've been blessed to experience, the interactions that you've seen, what has been you know, those the similarities or the draw points where you find that, okay, India is very advanced in their independence, we're just a young democracy, but these are the common grounds, these are the common values that India shares with South Africa, and perhaps the reason why we're such strong allies as countries.
Thanks very much for that, and also to the India Club for the opportunity on a historic occasion like today, Independence Day, to share some views. As we heard at the start of the talk here, the theme is unity and development, overall theme. And it's my view that unity started with Gandhi's time in South Africa in particular. Unity, not just internally, but between the two countries as well. Because as you know, Gandhi started the whole fight against it. And let me just say, I am nowhere near a freedom fighter. Thanks for that epithet. The others might be a little fair, but definitely not a freedom fighter. I've not taken up arms or anything like that. I am not in that generation. I would have done my little bit through being a journalist and so on in helping the freedom struggle, but that definition is for someone else. People like Madiba and Kathrada and others. I'm chuffed that you consider me in that category, but I'm not. Now, as I said, that unity was there, and then of course there was the break with India because of apartheid. As we all know, India led the international fight against apartheid from 1948. So there was this almost 40-year gap of the developmental relations, the trade, everything was stopped. And it resumed only once Madiba ascended to the presidency. So development, on the other hand, started, I believe, with the first indentured laborers who were sent here in 1860. There were Indians before that, of course, as we're now discovering historians saying, but that development started with those laborers who, despite the harsh circumstances that they found themselves in, they developed their own schools, temples, churches, mosques, cultural organizations, etc., and also tried to establish ties with India, which some of us have retained to this day as fifth and sixth generations of South African Indians. South African first, Indian second. But India is in our blood, it's in our heritage. We are South African citizens, but we are also very proud of our Indian traditions. So most of my books have reflected all those special relationships and that theme of being South African yet having a proudly Indian heritage, especially in commerce, culture and education, etc., all those ties between the two countries. So just to touch very briefly in the time allowed, my book, The Red Fort Declaration, for example, which was the declaration was signed by Madiba and then Prime Minister Deva Gaure. And then 20 years later, I started researching how things had developed out of that Red Fort Agreement, which basically was the agreement which led to the entire renewed relationship between India and South Africa, which has gone so very much far in all those areas, commerce, culture, education, etc., and many, many more. My latest book this year in January was titled, perhaps aptly, A January in India. So many things happen in India during January. And last year we were privileged, myself and a bunch of other journalists, including Yashika, we were there to share that wonderful Republic Day. And seeing it, you often see it on TV in the past, but seeing it firsthand for the first time was very special. What made it even more special was that our own president, Cyril Ramaphosa, was the chief guest on that. So there we were having the privilege of sharing that special relationship. Nothing could have highlighted better the special relationship between India and South Africa than the presence of our own president there. So yes, I think things have changed dramatically. We would have loved to be there again this year with at the raising of the flag here, as we usually do at the Consul General or the High Commission. And actually, I should commiserate with them in some ways because they put on such wonderful functions. And this year, the flag raising had to be a virtual ceremony. So perhaps by next year, when the COVID is gone, hopefully we can all be together there again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fakir Bhai. Gorish, the title of our conversation today is Unity in Development. My next point will be, on the points that Fakir Bhai has touched on how, development is such an essential part of, the growing of democracy, because it's one of the signals. If we don't develop, we don't, our democracy is then meaningless. I just want to ask a question. We are popularly known, and we even call ourselves the Rainbow Nation as a country. How important is unity across the board when working on developing a country or developing like relations between both countries that in this case it's India and South Africa. How important is it for us to have a united front as strong allies in trade, in culture, in healthcare as well? How significant is unity? Garish, can you hear me?
He's muted.
Oh,
Sorry. Thank you, Brendan. If you see India is a perfect example of unity, because you can see in India different caste, different creed, different religion, different people who are speaking different languages, culture, their food, their clothing, everything is so diverse and different, but still India represents as a united India. If you travel from north to south, you can see people having different color, and their food habit, their music, their language, everything is different, but still India is united. And India has given world a place where all the religion, they can come together and practice their own religion, and we all celebrate together. If a case is there that this was not happening, we would have actually divided into different states and different countries. So that's actually, that is a fact. It is always said that united we stand, divided we fall. So there is no doubt or nothing that actually can refute that unity is not required. Unity is something which gives you strength, it gives you togetherness, and it leads you to a positive path to achieve something. Within different groups or different corporates also, we actually practice the team games so that people come together and work together. So that's why there is needless to say that unity is most important. And in terms of unity, if you can see, and the word that you have mentioned in the beginning is spirituality. Spirituality is so important, and it has actually brought a lot of people together. Now, if you talk about even yoga, it is, nobody has to explain the name, how it means, what is the meaning of yoga. Everybody practices yoga and they get benefited. And similarly, if you talk about Ayurveda, which was the ancient medical practices that we used to have, it has actually spread across the world. And even the current medical fraternity, if you can say, has been based on certain Ayurvedic medicines, Ayurvedic principles. And it has been purified and it has been taken to another level. So now also, if you see in terms of development, India is in the pharmaceutical industries. India is leading the world. In terms of development, India is leading the world in terms of IT. So these are the development which has taken place in India, which has benefited the world. And if you see the cost effectiveness of the medicines which are coming out and which is being used by everybody, India produces probably the most cost effective and cheapest medicine. Internationally, they are exporting everywhere. So this is all possible because of the development which has taken place, and the old and new are marching together. All the people who are basically in terms of diversity, they are coming together to bring India to another level. And all the world and internationally, if you see, they spread the message of togetherness and brotherhood everywhere. So, for example, in terms of trade also, we in South Africa and India, although we are in different parts of the world, when mango is available in India, we don't have it in South Africa. But this is vice versa. We can actually trade this to make benefit other people also. So this is how we should be working together as a united front and as a united country from both the sides and take benefit. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Miss Yashika Ji, I am very interested. I mean, everybody who's spoken today, raises the issue of spirituality. Spirituality. It's a word that keeps coming, up again when people are speaking of the glories of, Bharat. It's everywhere. Actually, even in private conversation I've had with people, whenever people talk about her glories, the wealth, health, and spiritual, always just comes up somehow. So I'm really, really interested in knowing how spirituality can help create a strong moral fiber in creating a united society. What is the role of spirituality? How significant is having a spiritual fiber, spiritual element in creating this strong moral fiber in a diverse community? If you could please take that question from me.
Okay, wonderful question. Thank you. I'm so privileged being part of a broadcaster. I've been working in the religious department. I'm the head of the department now. It took a long time for me as a woman to actually be in that position because for a very long time they only wanted a male, and because of a particular ethos that our past in the apartheid era reflected. And it was sad when we saw how religions can be used to define certain levels of separation. And I think what India does is that it's able to give you the unique opportunity of so many different traditions. Even I may come from the Hindu faith, but we have so many different schools of thought that they may not even necessarily meet each other. But one thing India has done is given you the opportunity to share the concept Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means the world is one family. And India is able to celebrate that from great leaders like Guru Nanak to Sri Ramakrishna to Swami Prabhupada, etc., that have come from the land of India. And all religions, in fact, are absolutely work together in cohesion. Some of the oldest cathedrals are in India. And do you know there are Jewish communities that still exist in Mumbai and in the east coast of Kerala? And I only found that quite fascinating in some of my travels that I've been to India, particularly in film festivals, etc., to try and unpack what is India, what is this unique phenomenon about India, that the world talks about. But more than that, I think one of the deepest factors that we have within the continent is our indigenous spirituality. And if you look at the world, the Mayan traditions, the Native Americans, the African traditional religions, the Indian religions, the Islamic religions, Jewish traditions, etc., have within them common universal values. And these values are of compassion, of humility, of dignity. And these are the ones that we need to harness within our own country. Our country's achievement in democracy would not have come about had it not been for the leaders of the ANC in those years to have understood the dignity of difference. And that is what India shares with the world. It's the dignity of difference. It does not want a global sameness. We are all trapping within technology today. Let's all watch Netflix or Amazon or whatever, because these are new opportunities to watching sometimes mindless entertainment. But if you take a step back and if you go back to, Africa, to where the indigenous traditions are, like the Maasai, and if you go back to India to some of the tribal regions, Fakir even wrote something about that in one of his books. There's still an authenticity to these traditions. And we, as a global family, need to enhance that. Because out of these indigenous traditions, we have Umoja, the principle of unity. We have Ubuntu, the spirit of togetherness. Just like that, we have Ahimsa, which comes from India, and it has been exemplified, from the Mahabharata to the time when Buddha Buddhism became the state religion of India, to today in all our traditions, wherever we have the principle of non-violence is there. So South Africa and India has recognized that we need to utilize those concepts in commerce, in education, in the media, etc., because too often negative media tends to divide people. We need to push forward the values and what is happening in terms of trade, in terms of education, etc. And, I was privileged to be in the same journey that Fakir Hassen did. And, to remember the time when we were there for Republic Day, it was quite a unique experience. But most importantly, I was there during the meeting at ISRO at the time, before they launched to the moon. And I think one of the pivotal things in the space discovery has been the Prime Minister's vision of enhancing food security, not for India, but for the world. And he's recognized Africa as a continent that is that can grow original seed. And I think it's something to consider for the scientists and for the future generation as we go forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for such, fact-filled, and such an important answer. You spoke to a lot of questions I wanted to ask. So I'd like to go to Fakiba again. I called you a freedom fighter because, a pen and a typewriter is also regarded as a weapon of change. And if it's not for the media industry, a lot of injustices would never, be brought up. Your books. I was gifted a copy of the recent one that you launched in January. I didn't know about the other ones, and I was quite touched. So I just want to ask you, the title of this talk is called Unity in Development. What do you feel like, not what just you feel like, but based on your experience as well, from your writings and your researches and your travels between both countries and the connection that you still has kept for 5 generations between India and your family. What do you think is one of the most important things that we should be united in developing? Because I just want to talk around, the name of the dialect, united in development. So what should we, South Africa, India, be united in enhancing, in developing, in growing, in strengthening as allies and as sister countries? Fakir Bhai?
Yes, sure. Again, I've written extensively many of my books around this, and I'd be happy to let you have some of the older ones since you don't have them. But India and South Africa have both already cooperated so much. For example, in Pretoria, the Technikon there has got a whole area that's now being developed by the government of India. In Durban, at the Gandhi settlement, a couple of years ago, they set up a computer center, the Indian government. I'm talking about that side of it. South Africa also, as we've heard, especially the business sector in mining, for example, has such technology that India can use. IT technology from India is being used extensively in South Africa. So that level of development has been happening already for the past 20 odd years or more, particularly in this 20 years since we achieved our democracy. There is cooperation on both sides. The business sector, we have a large number of companies from India invested here. We have many South African companies, major companies invested in many sectors in India as well. And the one thing here about Indian companies that I know, since I've been involved so much with the book writing and so on, is that Indian companies always believe in developing their people, the local people that they train. Tata, for example, has always, wherever they go, in line with its basic premise of always leaving a footprint behind if they ever leave. They don't leave really, but they develop people, they train local people. Mahindra does the same, I know. In the Free State, they were doing wonderful projects. Every company, I think, that is invested in South Africa always has a CSI element to it, which involves development and training. And I guess unity comes from the success of development and training. Because if you do that, you unite. You not only leave a legacy, you also unite people. Because people remember the iTech program, for example, that the High Commissioner of India sends people to India for training every year, has benefited so many over the years. Every year there, where these people come back and sing the praises of the training they've received in India in various fields, whether they're in government, whether they are young entrepreneurs starting off. So I can go on for a long time talking about developmental partnerships. But I'm going to leave it to you to read up in some of my books.
I look really forward to that. Speaking of training, again, the spiritual element comes up again. There's a lot. I myself have been to India for some sort of studying and, retreats and whatever. I just want to hear from you, Lokanath, in terms of training. Did you receive any spiritual training while you were in India? And how was your India experience for you? Because I'll share something with everyone here. India has been my greatest escape, whether I'm going through a lot of anxiety, whether I'm mourning somebody. I just ran to India. I will continue to do so when the borders are open. And one of the most things I love about being in Vrindavan, for example, or Mayapur, is that I have a lot of family and friends there. And it's one of those weird places in the world where, not that it's a burden being black, but, you don't feel like you're any race. You're just Brandon from South Africa. Then there's Lokanath from Germany. Then there's this person from there. It's never, if anything, they approach you with very intelligent questions, sometimes a selfie here and there. So I'm just really interested in knowing your experience in India. Did you do any training there? I mean, I know you're in the health industry. Did that come about with going to India? Did you get trained there?
Thank you, Brandon. Yes, we have received training about the culture in the culture of coming from India, the culture of Vaishnavism, or worshipping Vishnu, learning about devotional service to God. And I've learned about how to attain real unity through these teachings. And the aspect of health and safety came about by chance, really. But the nice thing of working in this industry, and actually you could relate it to any industry, it's that we're really doing service. So my occupation is to keep people safe and during their work, and it's a nice service. It's a nice thing to offer. I basically give advice on how people can be safe at work. And I relate this to the teachings that I've learned about serving and trying to do some service to the people that I come in contact with, and also trying to relate this to serving God.
Yes.
Because anything that we do, any work that we do, it should be done for the pleasure of God. And this is one of the main teachings from the Vedic culture, that the perfection of our lives is to engage in service to the Lord. And to the degree that we can do that, and to the degree that we can relate to others in this way, we can have real unity and everlasting unity on the spiritual platform. Because one of the main teachings, one of the main things that I've learned from the Bhagavad Gita is that we are not these bodies. We look into the mirror in the morning and we may think that there I am, that's me. But it's not. So we are the driving force within the body. We are like the driver of a car. And so the spirit soul within the body, that's really us, not the body itself. So this principle has been very amazing for me to get deeper insight in through the Bhagavad Gita. And in my life in general, I try to apply this, whether it's work or whether it's direct spiritual practices.
Yeah, that's amazing. So amazing. Yeah. I just want to ask Gorish Ji, as we proceed, there's a point which was raised earlier on by Fakir Bhai. The trade between South Africa and India. We've seen a lot of companies. I've personally experienced the launch of the Mara Technologies. I've seen Muditi, Mod Enterprise, a young black-owned company, dive deep into business with India in terms of getting, PPEs and fighting the breakout of COVID-19. I've read so many amazing stories. So I am just interested to hear from you, Gorish. in trading, how can we create a more inclusive, a more diversified? I know India is open for business for South Africans and vice versa, but I just want you to talk more on those points of just like how willing and how India opens itself up to a lot of South African businesses from across the board, from across, united in that diversity.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan. I will respond to you. Meanwhile, can I actually recognize the presence of Percy and Tshepo in this panel? Hello, welcome. Maybe
Yes.
they are muted,
Actually,
so they are not able to talk. Brendan?
Actually, welcome to our guests. Sorry about that. Actually, Mr. Tshepo Mokhaladi is the managing director of one of the companies I was talking about, which is Mod Enterprise, which is went into business with India in terms of providing South Africa with PPEs, assisting the government with PPEs, and a number of other, technologies that they bring from India. It's a young Black-owned company. I read up about them and I told them about this session, and they were just willing to know more about India that they're in business with. Please proceed.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So basically, in terms of the acceptability and the encouragement that we give for mutual trade relations are reflected in the various platforms that we speak about our intention to come to South Africa, and also we are inviting the South African entrepreneurs and other companies to come to India. So you might be knowing that there is a forum called India Business Forum, which has been formed with CII, which is the apex body in India in terms of trade and industries. And we conduct various conferences and trade exhibitions, which were earlier on the ground. Now it will be virtual probably, but that gives us more opportunity to participate with least cost. And this will give more wide opportunities. India and South Africa, we consider as brothers, and we are connected from the long era because we both were colonized and we got our freedom. And we have Madiba, we have Gandhiji. So there are more historical links and more connections and more comfort in doing business with each other. We have a joint venture here in South Africa since 2012, and I have seen both the sides coming from India. So I feel there is a strong bonding, strong link, strong connection, which probably we have not even utilized 5% or 10%. There is huge opportunity for trade relationships because we can understand each other, we can relate to each other, we have similar challenges, we have similar aspirations, which can take us to a new world if we are able to work together and decide to form partnerships in various sectors. See, we are strong in some sectors and you are strong in other sectors. For example, in terms of agriculture, in terms of mining, engineering, South Africa is leading the world. So that can be shared with India. And similarly, the IT and pharmaceutical technologies and many other industrial trades, India is very strong, which can probably provide you more opportunity for training and trades. So in terms of the business practices that India does, you have seen it's always inclusive. We come here for any project and we try to train people, we try to engage with the people, and we try to make this success together. It is not that we come and sell and we go back. So similarly, we also have the educational institutions where we have probably internationally one of the best institutes in engineering, in medical and other fields also, where the cost of education is a fraction of the cost which is there in the developed countries like US or Europe, which can be utilized. And we have special incentives, we have special terms for those students who are coming for studying, so that the cost is minimized. If there are students who are academically excelling, we give free scholarships. And every year from time to time you can see the High Commission and Consulate, they release circulars inviting students to come and study in India in higher education. So we can take a lot of advantage of it, which probably we have not yet even taken 5-10%, as I mentioned earlier. So this is a topic which I'm really thankful to you, because you have opened up a view which can actually we can start engaging with each other and highlight areas where we can form partnerships and work together.
Oh, thank you so much. Because of course it is Independence Day. I just want to go quickly to Yashika ji before we run out of time. Yashika ji, I remember in January last year, I was sent also, I went to India as a protocol officer to the state at that time. And I remember, I just want you to take those who are not privileged to be there like we were at Red Fort, the raising of the flag, that spirit, with our own president there, His Excellency Mr. Ramaphosa, and His Excellency Narendra Modi ji, during the Independence Day celebration that happened in Delhi. I just want you to take us and through that journey how I remember there was even a place allocated to South Africans. There's so many, the South African bloc, and it was so diverse. The president was accompanied by so many ministers. There was a strong sense of celebration in the air. But I just want you to take us. I mean, you're better with words. Of course, you're such a senior journalist. So I just want you to share that spirit of, I want you to impart that spirit of what was there and what was felt there, which is what carries us right now.
Okay, so actually it was Republic Day, not Independence Day, and that was in January.
Sorry.
Yes, yeah. But I understand the sentiments that came out of that celebration was absolutely enormous. I think, to have the population of India come and assemble at very, very early hours in the morning in perfect discipline. There were no accidents, and it was done, there were 3 roads literally that was leading up, to the center where the Prime Minister's area was arranged. And of course, we were journalists and we were guests of the Prime Minister and the President, and we were given, front row seats, if one could say. And I think, but what was absolutely magnificent is that it celebrated Mahatma Gandhi's life. And there was one float that depicted Gandhiji in South Africa, which was absolutely sentimental to me. It was sentimental to all of us being there at that point in time, because it brought together the united spirit between 2 countries, 2 great leaders. And if you remember, when Gandhi came to South Africa, he was just a lawyer. And he became the Mahatma in this country when he saw the struggles that prevailed with the people in the country. And at that time, under British colonial rule in both countries, the suffering was atrocious. And to achieve independence today for 72 years, it's a huge, huge, task. But also, it changes the face of what a country like India had to go through in order to be, number one, united, because it had many kingdoms, and secondly, to be a country that pivots progress in every way. And we're speaking about, development as a theme today. That day, the Prime Minister recognized the importance of our indigenous value systems. And that's the recognition he's giving to Africa, he's giving to the world. And for us to actually, Gandhi's lived a life of simple living, higher thinking. If you see here the Dharma Chakra, it represents a wheel in motion. It represents continuous change. And that's the new norm that is coming about today in India and the rest of the world. India is redefining its historical narrative. It's taking into account its ancient values, and it's pivoting it in a new direction. And it's inviting us to be part and parcel of that journey. When you saw we call it Desh Bhakti, which is the spirit of patriotism, it's the same as we had when Mandela came into power, when he signed that declaration at that day at the Parliament in Pretoria. So those, I come from the 80s. I've been a struggle, whatever. I've also been in jail. And I know the difficulties when we faced against the apartheid era. I didn't even like white people at a point in time because I went through difficulties. But my journey taught me the experience of oneness, that we are all connected. It doesn't matter where we come from. And, we needed to infuse that spirit of unity to everyone today. And we've seen that this month is Women's Month. Prime Minister Modi has created so many, opportunities for women to develop in the IT sector, in different areas of business, etc., which has never been there before. The village life in India was so far away from urbanization, and they've recognized that Africa can play that role too. Our women in the villages today in our country need to be empowered. You, as a young person, all young people need to come together to build that. And maybe Percy can share from his experience how this development can take place as well, and relive this connection.
Yes, such a powerful statement once again, Yashika. Thank you so much. I was just thinking about the same thing. I was going to open the floor a little bit. Start with maybe Percy and then go to Tshepo briefly, and they could share their experience. Mr. Percy, if you could just share your experience, as Yashika earlier on said, on how this development and this progressive culture of India has impacted you in some way. Percy, can you hear me?
No, yeah, now I can. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and apologies for joining in late. There was just a glitch of a delay there, but first of all, thank you for allowing me to be part of this wonderful discussions, and also happy Independence Day to our friends and brothers and sisters from India. Look, I think Yashika has put it quite very beautifully in her own words. India has a lot to offer. I was very fortunate enough to be on a trip in India about 2 years ago. We traveled almost 4 to 5 states together. And that was my first trip to India. And thanks to the government and the High Commissioner, this just goes to show that we continued to collaborate, to enhance, to develop, and to work together between South Africa and India. And also the learnings therefore continues. India continues to play a very critical role across the globe. If you look at from an economic point of view, India has become one of the fastest growing economy, compared to other developing economies. There's a lot to learn from that. Technology is thriving in India. A lot of Indian people I've met are quite, interesting people with a lot of, good ethics in business, which is, I think, the world has changed to be something that we kind of not expect from time to time. But it's important to realize that the value that India has continued to add and the role that they've continued to play within South African business society is quite huge. And I'm excited to continue to be working with great minds from India. I'm excited about future collaboration and opportunities that are coming. And I hope that we can continue to impact the world the way we are.
Oh, thank you so much, Percy. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Mokhaladi, just briefly as well, if you can tell us on the importance of maintaining the united relationship in terms of trade with India, in your own experience, how important of a role do you think India can play or plays in being the economic powerhouse that they are? How important it is to keep growing that relationship, advancing that relationship, developing that relationship, and a united front, even on the business sector. Mr. Mokhaladi?
Oh, greetings, everyone. Thanks for having me on this wonderful platform. South Africa and India, we already have a solid framework for strong relations, not only in trade and investments, but the major challenge that I see happening, there's a saying that individually we are a drop, together we are an ocean. However, the major challenge that I see is the impact which all these trade partners has in South Africa in general. These interventions are not really felt as such. Much as they are there, they are not properly communicated. They are not properly shared within the communities. Earlier, one of the speakers mentioned some of the programs that are undertaken in your free states and all. All those things are done in isolation. And the impact thereof are not felt. So the only way that I see that we can spread the unity is by spreading and communicating even more in terms of the achievements and the interventions that we as different countries, as different role players have or are undertaking in different communities. Because it doesn't serve much for us to operate in our own little silos and still believe and think that we are making a significant difference. So to me, the discussion about trade relations has to also be expanded a little bit more in areas of how we as those who are industry leaders are impacting the environment and how we communicate so that we can then further influence or better influence how things are done. Thank you, Dr. Majozi.
Thank you, sir. Wow, good points there from our guests. Thank you so much for the both of you, Percy and Mr. Mokhaladi, for joining us. Just maybe one of the last few points, back to Fakir Bhai. In your writing, I just wanna also find out the relations, in terms of people. We understand that Indian people had a very important.
We already have a solid framework for strong relations, not only in trade and investments, but the major challenge that I see happening, there's a saying that individually we are a drop, together we are an ocean. However, the major challenge that I see is the impact which all these trade partners has in South Africa in general. These interventions are not really felt as such. Much as they are there, they are not properly communicated. They are not properly shared within the communities. Earlier, one of the speakers mentioned some of the programs that are undertaken in your free states and all. All those things are done in isolation. And the impact thereof are not felt. So the only way that I see that we can spread the unity is by spreading and communicating even more in terms of the achievements and the interventions that we as different countries, as different role players have or are undertaking in different communities. Because it doesn't serve much for us to operate in our own little silos and still believe and think that we are making a significant difference. So to me, the discussion about trade relations has to also be expanded a little bit more in areas of how we as those who are industry leaders are impacting the environment and how we communicate so that we can then further influence or better influence how things are done. Thank you, Dr. Majozi.
Thank you, sir. Wow, good points there from our guests. Thank you so much for the both of you, Percy and Mr. Mokhaladi, for joining us. Just maybe one of the last few points, back to Fakir Bhai. In your writing, I just wanna also find out the relations, in terms of people. We understand that Indian people had a very important role to play in the fighting of apartheid. Sorry, please forgive me. I have to switch cameras now because battery problems. in the fighting of apartheid, in the fighting of apartheid, is it possible to switch cameras? Thank you.
Meanwhile, Yashika ji, can we say a few words about India Club and this initiative that we have started while Brendan is sorting out his audio and video system. This is the initiative that India Club has started in this auspicious day, and we intend to carry out at a certain interval of, say, once in a month or so, to enlighten people about India and South Africa relationship, what we can do together, what are the good things that we have in both sides, and we can share. So this is a platform which has been created today, and we would like to have more and more speakers to participate. And a little bit about India Club, if some of the people are not aware of it, is basically India Club was formed about 13-14 years back with the High Commissioner being the main chief patron of our club, to unite and act as a bridge between South Africa and India in this country, and have the relationship with through the various socio-cultural events that India Club used to launch. I mean, you might remember that India Day was a signature event where 14,000-15,000 people used to come and perform in the stage, where India and South African actually share stage together, and within India also all the states were represented in terms of their art and culture. And there used to be food festival. Last year we had in Wanderers rugby field, and we had more than 14,000 people coming here. So that's a bit of India Club activities that we do, and we try to bring this kind of programs to our audience. Yeah, Brendan, are you back? So I think we have still a bit of problem in terms of
maybe
the audience.
Maybe we can ask Fakir Bhai to share some of his experiences of his writing of the struggle heroes in the country. I think that was the point Brendan was talking about, because it was a point on the Indian contribution to the liberation movement in South Africa. I think there's, it's a very strong and long relationship. So Fakir Bhai, maybe share some of your writings from that.
Good. I suspected also that was the way that the line of thinking of Brendan there. Well, it goes back to the role of the Indian community in the struggle has been immense. I mean, not just from the days of the local community supporting the man who would become Mahatma, the early lawyer, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, but the support he got and the support he gave as well to the local people. Keeping in mind that the Indian community has always been a minority within the broader South African community. But the role that they've played has been, if you could call it that, disproportionate to the population size. You get the Doctors' Pact, for example, where Dr. Dadu, Dr. Zuma and Monty Naika pulled together the resources of the then African National Congress, the Transvaal Indian Congress and the Natal Indian Congress. And together decided that they would engage the apartheid forces. And that formed the basis over the next few decades of how the communities that work together closely there were Indian leaders in the country like Dr. Dadu, Naika, etc., many others, who always said that, and even in the latest generation, that the freedom of the Indian people of South Africa goes hand in hand with the people of, with the indigenous people of South Africa. It couldn't be separated. And then we know, of course, in the latest generation, the history of people like Ahmed Kathrada and many, many others who closely with Madiba, who served prison terms with Madiba. Lalu Chiba comes to mind, many others, and I've, of course, written about them. And all this was reflected in Madiba's first cabinet. Those of us who can recall the first cabinet some 25 odd years ago will know that there were a great number of Indian members of, even not just members of parliament, but even ministers of state. Dalla Umar, Wali Musa, all of people like that have served. They served in the struggle, and then they continued that in the first cabinet. It's a little unfortunate, I think, that that has gone into decline. And I personally ascribe a lot of the absence of the Indian community in parliament. There are a few people, of course, but in the cabinet, for example, also, we found this decreasing. And I blame it on the apathy of the community. The South African Indian community has developed an apathy. What the actual reasons for that are, I don't know. And a level of complacency as well. In general, we find this amongst all youth in all communities, this level of complacency. But in the Indian community in particular, we find it the greatest. You see this during election times, you find the numbers being very low. Again, we don't know what the real reasons are, and I'd like to believe it is both complacency and apathy, and an acceptance that we now have freedom and we don't need to go vote. Our freedom, if we want to keep it, it depends on going to cast that vote the next time round. Brendan, I hope he's back. Well, I can just make one quick comment again if he's not back yet, Yashika. When you mentioned the Jewish community in is it? I forget the name.
In Kerala and in Mumbai.
Yeah, in Kerala especially. And in Kerala, my wife Zarina and I were very privileged to spend some time with one of the last survivors of that community, Auntie Sarah. She was almost around 100. She sadly passed on not long after we visited her. And we had a long chat with her. And why I'm mentioning this is because we found it so interesting that a young Muslim couple were looking after this old Jewish lady. And I came back and I wrote about how reconciliation, of course, is a very important element of both unity and development that we're talking about here. And what better example could we have then? I wrote about this huge conflict in the Middle East between Jewish and Arab. I don't want to go into the merits or demerits of that, but we find even in South Africa, we tend to get involved in that process. And I said, what a wonderful example of reconciliation this was. Two young Muslim people following that strict Muslim traditions of food, dress, and everything else, looking after this old Jewish auntie who was as staunch about her Jewish culture. That could serve as a global symbol of the reconciliation that we should see all over the world. Thought I should just share that comment as well.
Absolutely. I think India has many examples of spiritual unity, where you transcend the barriers of race and religion. In fact, the synagogue in Kerala was built by a Muslim ruler, and it was actually given to the community in recognizing their own individual way of worship. And the arrival even of the Jewish people in India, it shows India's hallmark of bringing people who have been previously marginalized, who were treated terribly in the European space. The same thing of the arrival of St. Thomas to India. Because of the excommunication in the churches in Europe, they had nowhere to go, and they had found a place in India over a period of time. So India isn't about people who look like me and Fakir. India is a space that has such variety. You go to one part, which is Pondicherry, it is French. You go to another part, it's Portuguese. And there's such variety in terms of the strength of India. India, as a civilization, could have ended even at the time of the Aztecs or even at the time of the Egyptians. But it chose not to, because it allowed itself the opportunity of dynamic diversity. And that's what makes India unique. And I think that is its strength, and it's showing us how Africa can also change, and Africa has this power and potential to just rebirth itself and become the hub of the continent and the world. And you know, when it comes to, I mentioned earlier about food security. Is Brandon back?
Yes,
Maybe
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay. All right. No, it's fine. It was just a
Can
point I was
just say
sharing.
Can I just say
Yes,
the city has
Professor.
come back to me with a fading memory. I could remember the city name, and it was Kochi, of course, where Auntie Sarah,
Yes.
the Jewish lady, lived. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, we were talking about Africa withholding its food. Europe has now acid rain, and it cannot explore its food potential. So it's looking at Africa to grow virgin seed, if one has to use it. And I worked with people like Margaret Roberts and with the Sangomas in the country, where they are growing seeds. We're having seed banks, where the original seeds of the continent are being kept for the next 50 or 60 years to enhance the growth of food potential in the world. And you know, Prime Minister Modi has also started these biotechnologies from the sea, where spirulina is now being farmed to farmers in Rajasthan and areas like that, where they cannot have that environment recultured. So in a similar way, we could do that in desert-torn areas in this continent and revitalize the ancient traditions of the Khoisan. I think we have huge potential of sharing and learning. We've got 2 oceans around us as a country. What a rich resource we have in order to build the country's communities again and live together in the spirit of friendship.
Wow, that was beautiful. Just moving a little bit forward, and just to testify on what the point was raised earlier on, myself and Lokanath are so lucky that we are living testimonies of the point that was made. I mean, we follow what others might regard as a very Indian way of life in terms of you know, of spirituality, and we've taken refuge in a lot of this Indian teachings about the way of life, and this is just pure testament to that that India is not just made for people who look a certain way, but she's opened up herself to so many, and she's got children throughout the whole world who can't wait to embrace her again when this lockdown is finished, which brings me to the elephant in the room, which is COVID-19. You know, this is such an unfortunate and a very, you know, crazy time to be alive. And, you know, I just want to go back to maybe open this to the floor, both maybe Yashika and Gorish and Fakir and Lokanath, to maybe any one of you can take this question. With COVID-19 presenting such a huge risk to human life, to health, to social well-being, to so many other social issues, what do you think as a united brotherhood or sistership that South Africa holds with India we could do to help each other out of such a dark place that we're currently in? And not maybe just help each other out, but what can we contribute to each other to live with the new norm? Because some of the effects and the impacts of COVID-19 will take a while, if ever, to, you know, go away. I would just like to open this up to everyone.
Would you like me to share something and then others will continue? Okay,
Yes, please.
So very quickly, I think what COVID-19 has done, it has redefined who we are as the spirit of humanity, in the sense that all these barriers that we've had and nurtured over the past in terms of prejudices, etc., is broken down. It's actually brought families together, although there are issues and, you know, instances of difficulties and challenges that families are having. But it actually goes back to the point: have we actually started to understand and impact the values that people can have in a home, so that translates into a society that is peaceful, and eventually the world that can actually achieve peace. The other thing with COVID-19 is the spirit of volunteership. What we have seen across every religious group, every race group in the country, has been the spirit of volunteership, because everyone they had lots of fear, but they realized how they are able to help each other. We have one of the biggest medical organizations, which is the Gift of the Givers. We have the Hare Krishna Food for Life, feeding thousands and thousands of people. Lokanath ji can even speak to that more. We also have community organizations that has come together in service of, we have the Hindu organizations, the Ramakrishna Center, etc., that have set out, clinics in order to treat the masses. And they've actually opened up homes. That I know there's some Hindu families that have given up their homes in order to have palliative care for people who have just come out of, the recovery period. So people are opening up. We need to challenge others to say, what is it that you can do even more? Our country has always been based on the spirit of volunteership. It has never been gone away. Now we are saying, is the time to stand the testimony of your faith. How do you serve the other? How do you are able to bring the other into the spirit of oneness? India Club has been a phenomenal example. We've had so many medical clinics that has gone out to the communities. And in fact, Brother Tshepo was very right when he said, people don't know about these initiatives. We need to have media to look at the positive spaces of what is happening right now.
Thank you, Yashika ji. Actually, you have taken my word already, but thank you for that. India Club, you might be knowing, that has organized so many flights for the people who have been stuck here for months together. They were in a very bad condition in terms of the financial condition, emotional condition. We could actually get all the groups together. Various regional organizations of India also came together under India Club, and we supported them with food, and in many cases we have been able to support with them with shelter and free flight tickets. We organized a flight with support from Emirates and some other organizations also. So we are also trying to bring back some of the Indians who are stuck, or non-Indians also who are stuck outside South Africa, wants to come back to rejoin their work and school and colleges and all those things. And we are also working with the high commissions from both the sides and respective offices to organize those flights at an affordable rate, because otherwise it was going beyond their means, because people are not getting their salary, their work is at stake, and those people who are stuck here were well-to-do people, but they were running out of money, they were not getting food. So those initiatives we could do, and it was a learning for all of us that how at the time of need we can come together, irrespective of our history or irrespective of our religion or culture. We all came together. Not only we helped those people who were stuck here from different communities, we also were able to work together with various South African NGOs to provide them with facilities like the PPE kits and sanitizers, food, and many other things. So it was a learning, and it was, I think, maybe once in many 100 years or 1,000 years it is required that we should know what we are and where we are from. So it's like all the living people and all the human are same. If we are staying together, we should consider we are belonging to this country, belonging to this land, and we should be unitedly facing those challenges. We should come out from these challenges together. So these are the learnings we have actually learned during this period.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I can only echo what Gorish and Yashika is saying. That from my experience, the Food for Life team has immediately, as the lockdown started thinking, how can we get the food out? How can we do it with the required precautions? And then obviously very successful in feeding a lot of people, getting food to a lot of people. And also from my own experience, the spiritual family of the Hare Krishnas, immediately when the lockdown started, online programs, online Bhagavad Gita classes started being given by one of dedicated followers of the founder of the movement. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami on Facebook. You can go on every night and have Bhagavad Gita class. And so it's an immense shelter. And actually our spiritual family came close together through COVID-19. So it was a wonderful, and it is a wonderful opportunity to rise to the occasion and help where we can.
Yeah, can I make a comment, Brendan? Brendan?
Yes, sir, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to comment. I think implicit in your question is not just about how do we cooperate on COVID-19 now, but also as we move ahead with it. As you rightly said, it's going to be with us for a long time. And I would venture an opinion, if you will, without being a spokesperson for both the governments of India and South Africa. But I would eat my hat if this does not happen. When either of these two countries find a vaccine, they will be first in line not only to share it with each other, but with the continent and the world. I'd venture that. And then secondly, one of the most interesting developments from a cultural viewpoint, in my mind, which resulted from the COVID-19, was where artists could no longer perform. And then a group of artists got together with what was going to be a small initiative of a few days or a week to start performing online. And I'm talking particularly Indian music. And they did this for South Africans. And that thing is still going on 3 months later. There are now Indian musicians participating in that, I think it's called Musicians Against COVID-19 is what the Facebook group is called. And it's going on and on. And there are people from India and the rest of the world now joining in. So indirectly, it has had a positive effect. I mean, COVID-19 is a terrible thing, but one of those positive outcomes, if you will, of that is that suddenly there are new ways being developed of sharing culture, in particular Indian culture, across the globe now. And I thought that would be useful to share as well.
Yes, thank you so much to my panelists. Gorish Ji, just to go back to the point you made on the Vande Bharat flights and repatriation flights in general, I was one of the people who was lucky to get on the June 18th flights from Delhi to South Africa. But my question then becomes, back on the flights thing, there's a lot of students I know who would like to go back to India, who are not Indian nationals, who are not OCI card holders, but who have been admitted into universities or whatever learning institutions, be it spiritual, be it yoga institutes, be it universities. How do they go about trying to go back within the precautions of COVID-19 and the protocols? How do they go back to India? What is the right procedure? Who do they contact?
Yeah, Brandon, we are working with Emirates and Serengeti for all the flights that we have arranged recently. And after the last flight, we thought most of the people have gone. I mean, there is no more backlog. But we immediately started getting a list, and I can tell you the list has gone beyond 150 now. We have created a link which we can share actually. It can be also seen in our website, in India Club's website. They have to register themselves. And with that details, we are going to be seeing the viability and then taking permission for the next flight back to India. And that is quite, we are getting a lot of pressure and requests also from various Q2 organizers, because we have been able to get the cheapest rate from Emirates, and people have been well taken care of in terms of their testing, in terms of their holding up in one place, and then arrangement of food, and all the protocols which are required is all done from our volunteers team, who are working days and nights together for last few flights. And if there is really requirement of another flight, we'll definitely consider again if the numbers are right.
So it's also open to non-Indian citizens?
It is for everybody. Let me clarify. This is for everybody. In terms of all the expatriate flights which has gone back to India from here, we have not discriminated at all. It is open to all.
Okay, thank you for taking my question. Yashika, do we have more time for questions?
I think we need to do closing statements.
Okay, yeah. I'll just go around and just take closing statements, starting with Fakir. Bye.
I think a lot of what has been said has been reflective of the unity and development that India and South Africa have been partners in for a very, very long time. And I'm sure it's going to continue well into the future.
Yes. Lokanath?
Thank you. Just like to say thank you for the opportunity to be part of the discussion. And I'd like to just throw in a alternative meaning to independence. Of course, we think of it as in terms of economics and in terms of political type of scenario. But real independence for us as individuals, for every human being, whether you're in this country or that country, and this is the meaning of independence that comes from the Vedic culture, that we should strive to be independent from the material world as spiritual beings, and meditate on this, going back to the spiritual kingdom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gorish Ji?
I'm really happy and proud to be part of this panel and today's discussion, and it's beginning of a very strong platform where we can share our thought process, and we can share our ideas, and we can share the facts and bring India to South Africa as well as South Africa back to India. And this platform let us strengthen and let us continue this kind of engagement more proactively in the coming days. And we need support from everybody and blessing from everybody to continue this journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Yashika Ji?
Perhaps do you want to ask Tshepo and Percy first, and then I will sum up.
Yeah, okay, that'd be good. Mr. Mokhaladi and Mr. Percy?
Oh, yeah. You know, listening to the discussions has been very interesting and very informative. I haven't been to India myself, and I'm looking forward to visiting India one of these days. However, locally we've been working with a couple of Indian communities and Indian partners. And you know what I'd like to see happening in future, that the Majozi maybe and the panel, it's us discussing how we integrate the Indian community into the South African framework and into the South African community through mediums like your chambers, like your NGOs, your humanitarian interventions and so forth, how we integrate the Indian community into the South African economy, into the townships, so that all these value systems that have been discussed today and have been shared can also be imparted and be shared to the greater community. So that's something that I'd like to be, or I'm interested in taking part in, discussing how we integrate the two communities here in South Africa and back in India. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Mr. Percy, please, closing remarks.
The microphone.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. Thank you very much. I think, look, I'm really humbled by this wonderful opportunity. But more so, to add to what Mr. Mokhaladi was saying, we need to really fight the misconception that a lot of hardworking Indian business people, especially from the business community, we need to educate our people, really find a better way of integrating the Indian community within our society, especially within the Black communities, and also help to grow the economy, collaborate, and continue to engage on matters that will help both, individuals and societies to integrate even better. So I believe we as a business society, we have a lot of work to do. We need to continue with this dialogue And I'm glad that the Indian club business has come on board. We need to open up the cycle to get it bigger, so we can spread the word of collaboration and also be a peaceful society like Mr. Freemont was saying. So thank you.
Thank you. Yashika, please, if you could give us your closing remarks.
Right. Thank you very much once again to the Government of India, India Club, and all the members that are here today on the panel. I think it has been an amazing experience to actually share so much of, words of wisdom that has come from everyone and from the different types of experiences they've had to the theme, unity and development between the two countries as we, India celebrated Independence Day. I think one key thing has come out. There's lots of more integration that is needed in our country and abroad. And I think clearly it's also the fault of the media, because the media needs to play a better role in unpacking the relationships between the countries. Instead of looking at incidents of sensationalism, we need to change the narrative. Social media has bypassed traditional media in the sense that what Fakir also mentioned, there's so many initiatives across the board where people are sharing what is happening right now, not just with COVID-19, but the opportunities of engagement. And we need to pilot that and push it in a digital environment. The use of digital technology is extremely high in South Africa, especially with cell phone technology. It's the highest in the, and also in the continent. So let's make use of that effectively and share good news stories. I think that's important. So, with those few words, I would like to say thank you to you, Brandon, for chairing the session, and also to everybody to participate in sharing the beauty of an integrated, dialogue today.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank all my esteemed guests for availing themselves for today's session. I look forward to more sessions in the near future. And I'd like to express my heartfelt congratulations to the people of India, the government of India. Jai Hind, Bharat Mata Ki Jai.
Bharat Mata Ki Jai.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Thank you, guys. It was really nice having you all on the panel. We really appreciate our heartfelt thank you to each and every panelists. So we will reconnect again shortly, and for the further details, as well as as we mentioned, this is going to be series of talks. So we